here is what you told me about this in general as it relates to leadership. And that is, when you are in improv, you drop all expectations, you show up and listen to what's happening, not what you thought was going to happen.
Right.
What did this teach you about leadership? And what does this actually mean in improv?
So stand-up comedy, you write something, you rehearse something, you show up, you do it, it's 4 to 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes max, and you either bomb or you're successful, and that's it, and then you're done. It's a very type A behavior, actually. So, and there is, the relationship with the audience is just different. They're out there sort of make me laugh. Improv, on the other hand, to me was terrifying. I was dared to try it. I want to be clear. I didn't voluntarily go to a class. And that first day, I remember we had to go around the circle and sort of say, I don't even remember, say something. And it was the most nervous I've ever been because there's no plan. There's no script. There's no plan. They're going to ask you really interesting things that you don't know how to answer. And oh my gosh, what a vulnerable position. And so over time, what I've seen, I have worked with people on stage that it just didn't work. I've worked with people on stage where you get off and it's like you're finishing each other's sentences. You really, really understand each other. And so how I think there's two parallels, but the first one is a lot of it's about trust. So creating a tribe of people, I know that's an overused term, but the people around you, whether it's family, friends, people you work with, that you really, really trust. You know they're going to tell you the truth, even if it's hard. You know they're going to have your back, even if they don't really get what you're doing or what your business is, they're there for you. And so when I walk on stage with some people that I trust, they literally have my back. So if I stand there and say nothing, they'll make a scene out of it. We'll figure it out. We'll get there together. So we'll succeed together or we'll fail together. Okay, so that's the first parallel. The second is, which takes a while to learn in improv, the only thing you know when you walk on stage is the other people with you. Well, most of the time you do. And sort of a form, you learn different techniques. Everybody's probably heard the like, yes, and it's not all yet. You're not always saying yes, and, but what you're doing is you are dropping whatever cute, clever idea that you had when you were in the wings, right? And so, you might go out there and I'm going to do a sketch about a police officer, and you walk out and you say something, and the other three people 100% did not understand that you were a police officer, and they thought you were a gerbil. And so you can stay, you can stay stuck and be like, this scene is about a police officer. And I think we've all been there. Actually, if you've seen a show, the audience feels super awkward. It's really alienating. It feels like a fight on stage. Or you can say like, oh, they came up with a way better idea. This is more interesting. I'm going to, a couple of things, stay super curious about this whole gerbil thing because I don't know what's happening. So stay curious, listen, and drop whatever you showed up with. So how I've seen this be successful, particularly in consulting and running my own company, I talk to so many different clients in technology, not in technology, and all of their business problems are very, very different. And so to walk in, I've seen a lot of consulting firms and sort of attitudes walk in and be like, we know how to solve this. We're going to apply our specific framework and it works every time. And so my hunch is if you leave that outside the room and come in as a leader, whether it's with your team, very curious and listening to what shows up in the room, I usually find I'm not the smartest person in the room, and I'm certainly not the most creative person in the room. And so I think that's when like real connection with teams happens and when real magic happens, when people feel seen, feel heard. It doesn't mean you're necessarily going to do what they said, but it informs your decisions. And so I think in the corporate world, we spend a lot of time posturing and sort of like, oh, I'm going to wait for my turn, and then I'm going to raise my hand and say that cool thing that I've been thinking of for 20 minutes, rather than being present in the room. And so I have to see it to myself too. After 20 years of experience, it could be really easy to say, this always works on websites, or we always see great results with XYZ. The truth is, in business and in life, always and never don't work particularly well. So if you can take that trick of improv and say, I'm going to be here, I'm going to be present, I'm going to hear and see what shows up in the room rather than my 25, slide deck, which is beautiful and I spent the weekend on. Maybe we're going to drop that and have a totally different discussion. What I've seen is pretty magical results in really big companies and really small companies. And I think every leader can benefit from that.